Okay, so one of the things that's really interesting is that the government is providing amazing financial support at the moment. Like, I know through lockdowns and things, there was, money being thrown around here, there and everywhere, but there is still a bucket of money around that's been there for about a year, and it's going to go through until March, so not much longer now, really. But most businesses don't realise they're eligible to claim it. So we're going to talk about this 50% wage subsidy opportunity and what you need to do to claim it. And there are a lot of businesses that are eligible for this one who wouldn't have been eligible for sort of the lockdown grants and things like that. We'll talk about the conditions and the exclusions, because of course there are always exclusions. And I'll make sure that if you're going to be excluded, that you don't waste your time pursuing it. Once you access this funding, it unlocks a whole lot of other funding for you as well. So we'll talk about that and how it works. And then there are also some state-based wage subsidies in different states. And I've done a couple of calculations that I'll show you in a moment of how that can work, where you can almost get to the point where your employee is costing you nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean like maybe $4,000 a year or something like that. So why are we doing it? Because it's our area of expertise. This funding is linked to training, which doesn't mean it's linked to hiring 17-year-olds who don't know anything. I'll explain that in a moment. But I used to own a training company. It's our area of expertise. We realised that it's easy for us and it's actually hard for people that don't live in this world. We're claiming it ourselves. I opened up our internet banking on Monday morning and there was like 7,000 all deposited into the account, which is the 50% subsidy for the quarter for each of my people. And then, of course, after the session, you might get us to help you risk-free, or you might decide to do it yourself. And my big reason for doing it, and I'll show you the numbers in a moment, is that, as usual with all of these things, it's the really big companies that have been claiming it all, because they have people that do this stuff. They have HR departments. They're on top of this. They're keeping an eye on any changes to government policy. And they jumped in and grabbed almost all of it initially. So I'm on a bit of a soapbox about making sure that we, the small companies, kind of get our fair share of the money that's being thrown around, and it doesn't just all go to the big guys like it always does. I'll get off that soapbox, so I might be here for a while. Okay. So, a bit of background. In late 2020, remember that far back, JobKeeper was coming to an end, and JobKeeper did a great job. It kept a lot of businesses afloat, but it did have some flaws in it as well, as we know. And one of the flaws was that it didn't develop any skills, and people got paid for not working in a lot of cases. And I know some businesses friends that I had who were in like hospitality business, where they had lots of people on doing 1 or 2 shifts a week, and then they kind of had to come up with this pile of money in like March, April last year to pay them all the $1,500 each, and then hope that they were going to get it back from the government. And it turned out they did, but it really hurt the cash flow up front. And so, there were challenges in JobKeeper. And the other big thing was that it didn't develop any skills in people. Didn't add any value in any way. So it added value in the sense of keeping the economy going, but there was an opportunity for it to add more value. So this subsidy was brought in 5th of October last year. So just over a year ago, and the federal government came out and said, we're going to do a wage subsidy for 100,000 training places, $2.8 billion. Now, those are for training places, not tradie places. That's important. And I'll explain the distinction in a moment. It includes tradies, but it includes all sorts of other things like leadership programs and things like that as well, which people did not realize initially. So they brought it out 5th of October, and within the first month, 70,000 of those places were gobbled up by big companies, because initially they were like, anybody can take it. New workers, existing workers, PhDs, doesn't matter. And so of course they went, okay, then we'll have it. So 3 weeks later they went, oh, that's not really quite what we wanted. And so they tightened up the criteria for existing workers. So if someone has been full-time permanent with you for 20 years, say, there are fewer options for them now than there were a year ago, but there are still some options for some people. So I'll basically go through today. I'm going to explain to you about the difference between new worker and existing worker as far as these definitions go, because it's not obvious, and also what the options are. So basically, in a nutshell, you stick someone on an approved on-the-job training program and you can get a wage subsidy for them. There are also some subsidies that are not linked to training, and I'll briefly explain those to you as well, but this is probably the one that kicks them all off. So they tightened up the criteria for existing workers. By the time they got to May this year, 130,000 places had been used up, so it slowed down a little bit. They then in the federal budget uncapped it and said they were going to make another 170,000 places, put another 2.7 billion in. I saw Thursday is my day that I work from home, as you can probably see. And sometimes I work from home with ABC News on in the background. Don't know why I punish myself by watching Parliament on a Thursday afternoon. But last Thursday afternoon, the Prime Minister got up and was talking about this program and said that so far they've signed up 217,000 people for it. So when they say uncapped, they need it, fortunately. And they extended the deadline for people to start until March next year, which with Christmas coming up, March is going to be on us before we know it, really. And then this month, or no, last month now, isn't it? They tightened up the criteria for existing workers a bit more. So I'll talk you through that. Does it make sense so far? I won't bamboozle you with too many statistics, but I just wanted to give you a bit of the context. So the program is called Boosting Apprenticeship Commencements. You've probably heard of it, and you probably think it's just for tradies and just for apprentices because of the title. But it's not just for apprentices, and it's actually not just for commencements either. What they define as an apprentice/trainee is a long list of courses, like I said, anything from being a plumber to doing a leadership diploma, doing HR courses, cybersecurity, all sorts of different things. And I'll show you a shortened version of the list in a moment. But this is who you can do if you're a business or you're a charity or an organisation, sports club, whatever, you're a council. Basically, all of you guys who commented in the chat at the beginning in terms of industry, all of those industries would be eligible. Assuming that your allied health, Bethany, is not part of Queensland Health, then you would be eligible. State governments and federal governments aren't eligible, but everybody else is. Even councils are eligible. And what you get is you get reimbursed up to 50% of the wages for anybody that you enroll in an approved qualification using the traineeship system. And it's capped at $7,000 per quarter over the year, so a maximum of $28,000 over the year. So sign-ups for the program finish in March, but then it runs from 12 months from whenever you started. And you can start different people on different dates as well. So can pretty much apply to all of your new employees. There's very few exceptions, but just about anybody that you've hired part-time in the last 12 months, full-time in the last 3 months, I'll explain that in a moment, or anyone that you're going to hire before March, you should be able to make this claim for. And some of the existing ones, that I'll show you which existing workers are eligible. The key condition is that they've got to do a qualification. And sometimes that qualification is free, depending on which state you're in. So you could potentially put them on a free course and get a 50% wage subsidy. You can claim it in combination with some state subsidies, and you can potentially get 90% or actually slightly more, I just calculated it before, of the wages back for the first year. And I'll show you the calculation that I just quickly worked out. That's just a bit of government letterhead to show you that it's really a thing. Additional 2.7 billion up to 31st March. Take on new apprentices and trainees, and the "and trainees" is the key word because lots of things count as traineeships. And we have this, everybody has this kind of thing that a trainee is a school-based trainee. It's a 15-year-old who's doing like certificate 2 in office admin or something. But there are a lot of people that are eligible for traineeships that are not kids. Yeah, it's a win for everybody, really. I mean, for the government and the economy, obviously, I think one of the things is that our government has learned some of the lessons from other countries since the pandemic hit and realised that they need to stimulate the economy to keep things going. And this certainly boosted employment. Like if you've seen any of the stats lately about jobs and employment growth and things like that, 270,000 people being signed up onto this, 217,000 people being signed up on this program in the last few months. It's probably got something to do with unemployment not being any worse. It keeps the economy going. Put money into businesses, businesses put money into reinvesting. And I know for us, being able to claim that 50% subsidy, it's meant we've been able to do a bunch of projects that we wouldn't have done otherwise. Like we started a podcast a couple of months ago, and I've been able to spend money on wages to get people to do experimental kind of things to go, let's see how this goes without, so you can take more risk basically if you've got security of having half your wages covered for a year, as you know, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir there. So yeah, good for employers because we can actually afford to take on people, and it's good for employees because it gives them some job security, some wage security, and it also gives them, it upskills them, gives them some qualifications, so that actually benefits them down the track. So like we said about eligibility, any employer, except for state and federal governments, any location in Australia, any industry, any size, the only one, if you're a sole trader and you don't have any employees, like you're literally a one-person operation, you can't do it because it's based on training, so somebody's got to be there to train somebody. Anybody else can do it though. Full-time or part-time staff, I'll explain a bit more about that in a moment. And Australian citizens, all eligible. New Zealand citizens, you might be able to tell by my vowel that I'm not from around here. If New Zealand citizens have to have been here for 6 months to be eligible, don't have to have any kind of citizenship status or anything, but I think we've pretty much all been here for 6 months anyway, because we're locked out of New Zealand at the moment. So any of your Kiwi staff, and anybody who's got a visa that's got a P next to it where they can basically stay permanently. So it could be a skilled worker visa or a partner visa, as long as it's one of the permanent classes, they're still eligible as well. And any of your professional staff or experienced staff or whatever, as long as they're doing a qualification that's, upskilling them in some way. So it's pretty much everybody, really. Let me just check for questions. I think, yeah, feel free to ask questions. Even if you want to make sure it's something I cover, just pop it in. Let me just show you a quick little calculation that I did earlier. So very basically, 5 people, if you put 5 people through the full claim, you got 140,000. Hope my maths is right. Is that 28 times 5? I think so. And worst case, if you had to pay for course fees, which some of them you won't, some of them you will. New South Wales, we love them because everything's free. The worst case is if you've paid up for everything, you're still going to come out with 111,000 afterwards. And the training providers that we will refer you to will make sure that you don't have to pay the course fee unless this is approved. Like, you don't want to end up obviously in a situation where you paid out for courses and then this doesn't get approved and then you're out of pocket. So the order of things is important. Obviously, you need to get approval first and pay for courses second. Here's a little calculation of one that I did for someone, and we actually have a similar situation here in Queensland. So if you're in Queensland or Victoria, you get the 50% federal subsidy, and you can also get 20 or 24,000 from the state government, depending on who you're hiring and what you're doing. So, and for the Victorian ones, well, actually for both of them, you don't have to put them on a course. So you could actually just claim the state subsidy and not put them on the course and get the other 50% if you want to, but I don't know why you do that. So Victoria, if you hire a woman who's 45 or over, not saying that we're disadvantaged or anything, but we are apparently, then you get, and they're an additional hire, so you're increasing your head count, then you can get the 50% from the federal government. So say you put her on 56,000. You get 28,000 from the federal government over the year, and then you get another 20,000 from the state government for her being over 45. And then if she doesn't have formal qualifications and you put her on like a Cert 3 in office admin or something, then you'll get another 4,000 from the state government. That's been around for ages. That's sort of just the traineeship state incentive. So potentially that person over the year will just cost you $4,000 plus their entitlement. So it's 4,000 plus the super, obviously. You will get a discount on your payroll tax if you're paying payroll tax. For some of these, you'll get a discount on work cover as well. So basically you could go, if you've got 10 staff in Victoria right now, you go out and hire 3 more. And as long as they meet the criteria, they basically would cost you almost nothing for the year. And, Victoria, for example, it's anyone over 45, you get 20,000, I think. You get 20,000 for women, 10 for men. You get funding for people under 25. If somebody is a single parent, if they've migrated here in the last 4 years and English isn't their second language, there's a whole lot of criteria that you can get additional funding for. In Queensland, it's if they're young or if they've been unemployed. You won't get it in Queensland and Brisbane City Council, Gold Coast City Council or Sunshine Coast Council, but you get it in all the other postcodes pretty much around the place. Anyway, I won't bore you with the detail, but there's a lot of money out there that you can claim, and even if you're not in Victoria and Queensland, you're still going to get at least half the wages covered. Yes, Stephanie, if you're in Redlands, that is perfect. You are eligible. You're deprived out there, apparently. Okay, let me just show you a couple more statistics and then we'll talk about the logistics of it. So far with the claims that have been claimed, 60% of them have not been in traditional trades. So this is not just for plumbers. I mean, if you're hiring young people and you want to turn them into plumbers, and that's fine, but 60% of them have been for things like leadership programs, HR, business, IT, marketing, digital marketing, whatever. 40% of them have been in small business, so that's a bit of a recovery from the beginning where they were big companies. 20% of them have been for industries, employees that are over 35, so that's good for us oldies. And interesting, construction is taking it up fastest, which kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Because they tend to be bigger companies and they're already using apprenticeships and things, so they would have understood, oh yeah, I know how the system works. Some very interesting numbers that I saw, and I actually updated them, but I haven't popped them on my slide yet. There are almost 250,000 jobs being advertised on Seek this week. And that is a record. That is more jobs than have ever been advertised on Seek in the history of Seek. It's like $65,000 people jobs more than there were last month. 100,000 of those are in hospitality, which makes sense because you guys in the southern states, you had to put off your people and now everybody's trying to find them again. So I'm interested to know actually from any of you guys that are here, if you are seeing the skills shortage that everyone's talking about. Most of the people that I've been talking to, that's their biggest headache right now, is trying to find people and hire people. And it seems to be, some industries worse than others, but yeah, okay, everyone's going, yeah, no, we're seeing the same. What's interesting though, just a sidebar, is I advertised a job the other day because we have given up our office, and we work part-time in an office now, part-time from home. And so I advertised the job as being partly from home, partly from office. It just clicked over the other day to the 200th applicant. Like, right, that's what everyone wants. So yeah, you poor beggars in Victoria trying to hire hospitality staff where they actually have to turn up somewhere. That's hard. But this might help actually a little bit. So one of the things that you potentially could do is if you can get $28,000 a year subsidy for people, it does give you the opportunity to give them some sort of perks and maybe be a bit more creative. Now, I know people that I've talked to in hospitality have said, look, we're offering $40. I mean, I used to be a shareholder in a resort and we used to pay $50 an hour on the Sunshine Coast at the weekend to get people to carry toast from the kitchen to the table. We still couldn't get people. So it's not always about dollars, but if you've got an extra $28,000 to play with, there probably is stuff that you can do that will attract people, whether it's, we'll pay for your first month's rent if you move here, or, I don't know, we'll buy a company car and let you drive it around, whatever. So here's a few opportunities in terms of the new worker thing, because if the policy around this stuff is if you're hiring somebody new, then there are lots of courses you could choose from and there are lots of opportunities, because obviously that's the primary objective of the government, is to either create new workers or upskill existing ones in specific skill shortage areas. So these are the people that are eligible as a new worker, which means if you're in New South Wales, the course is free. If you're anywhere else, the course is probably subsidised, and you'll get the up to 28,000 wage subsidy for them. Anybody that, all the way now, the 1st of December. Anybody that you've hired full-time, it'll actually be the 1st of September now. Anyone you've hired full-time since the 1st of September, 3rd of September, something like that, is eligible for this funding. So if you hired anybody in the first week of September, whether you decide you're going to get us to help you or not, let me know straight after this, and we will at least lodge a placeholder claim for you, because as long as you get it lodged in the first 90 days, you can take your time later and organise it. But we had a guy there when the first one of these I did, we had a guy who their person, it was 3 days past the deadline and they missed out on $48,000, which was a bit sad. So anyone full-time since then, anyone part-time since the end of November last year, beginning of December. So if there's someone that you've had on your books part-time for less than a year, they are eligible for the full wage subsidy. Anybody that you're going to hire between now and the end of March will be eligible. But these ones are interesting. There's a couple of little variables as well. If you have already hired them and they've been full-time for less than 90 days, part-time for less than 12 months, that's the same thing. But if you've got casual, so hospitality and retail people particularly, You know, we always work on it's always casuals for that. You've probably seen some of the court cases lately. I'm not an industrial relations person, so, you know, disclaimer, go get proper advice and things. But a lot of the time, if you have somebody as a sort of a permanent casual, whatever that is, and you give them similar shifts or similar hours for a long period of time, they can then take you back to Fair Work and say, I'm actually permanent part-time, I want holiday pay and sick pay and all that sort of thing. So you may decide that and in terms of attracting and keeping people, giving people some guaranteed hours might help you actually recruit as well. So if you have casuals and you upgrade them to part-time or full-time, doesn't matter how long they've been casual with you, they could have been casuals with you for 20 years, you were still eligible for a wage subsidy for them. So, you know, effectively, and they need to be, in Victoria, to be part-time, it's 13 hours a week averaged over the month. So it's basically like 52 hours a month. And the rest of the country, it's 15 hours a week, so 60 hours a month. So basically, if you've got someone a casual who's doing 60 hours a month for you at the moment, and you expect them to do 60 hours a month for the next 6 or 12 months, it may well be worth considering changing their role to a part-time role and getting half the wages back. I mean, you have to pay for some holidays and sick pay, but in return you get half the wages back, so you're still going to come out well ahead. And part-timers are the same. So if you've had part-timers and you're going to upgrade them to you can upgrade them to full-time, and you will get half their wages back. So they might have been working 19 hours for you. You put them up to 38 hours a week, and it's basically going to cost you the same because you get the second half of it back. Now, those last two, this is just a kind of technical detail, not that important. The states don't classify those as new, so they don't give them free courses. But the federal government still classifies them as new, so you'll still get the wage subsidy. So you have to pay for training for those last two, which might be, I don't know, anything from $800 to $5,000, depending on what the course is. But for your kind of retail and hospitality people to be at the lower end of that. But to get 28,000 back, you know, that kind of works. I've just put a few course examples up here. And yeah, ask away questions if you've got any. So you could do Cert 2 in hospitality, and it's different in different states because, you know, I don't know if you've noticed, but our states have different rules from each other. Who knew? But most of these ones are available in most places. I don't think we've got anyone here today from WA, but if we do, the only diploma you guys can do is leadership management, but there's a whole bunch of other Cert 4s you can do. So you can put people on a Certificate 2 in hospitality or retail, or Cert 3 in business, a whole bunch of different trades and things like that. Let me just go back to the chat and see who else, what other industries we had. So freight forwarding and warehousing, I think there's you know, that Cert 3 in warehousing and logistics, whatever it's called. I'd have to check with the New South Wales whether it's eligible, but I'm pretty sure it is. Electrical and solar, there's tons for you guys. And allied health, there's quite a few actually too. Or you can put them on these kind of more general courses like an entrepreneurship and new business certificate 4, or project management, leadership, HR, those sorts of things. There are a lot more now. To explain the course thing, the courses for this subsidy, this is where it gets a little bit complicated, but bear with me, they need to be approved at 3 levels. So first of all, the federal government says, here's our list of courses that are approved for new workers, and here's our list of courses that are approved for existing workers. Then the state government says, of that list, these are the ones that we're going to let you do in our state for reasons. And then the state government says, these are the training providers we're going to approve to deliver those ones as a traineeship, because it's a different training model to just doing a course. And then they'll go, these are providers that we're going to give funding for to deliver them for you free or cheap. So you basically got to look at sort of 3 or 4 lists to go, yeah, federal government, state government course, state government traineeship, state government funding, approved providers. And when you find a course that is on all those things and matches up with the job that your person is doing, then that's the one that you can do. They have some requirements for supervision in workplaces and things. So if you've got beauty therapists, you can't put them through a plumbing apprenticeship or something. Obviously, you need someone. And same with the leadership one. If you've got someone doing a diploma of leadership and management, they obviously need to be reporting to a manager with management skills who can mentor them through the program, because they're kind of delivered as an on-the-job training sort of a model. So there needs to be someone in the workplace saying, yeah, they've been practicing that and they're doing it well. Same sort of thing as you do if you're an electrician, but just at a management kind of a level. So here are a few ideas that we've been coming up with over the last few months and that people have been doing that might be helpful ways that you could actually use this. This one I think I already mentioned. If you've got part-timers, you could make them full-time for 12 months and they'll basically will cost you the same. So you get twice as much labor, you can do a whole bunch of extra work, new projects and things. Obviously they've got to agree, but you could make them full-time for 12 months for the duration of the wage subsidy, contracted as a full-time contract, and then put them back to part-time, depending on, industrial relations, environment and things like that. But you could do that with most businesses and most workers. Take your part-time hospitality person, make them a full-time hospitality person for a year, give them a whole lot of extra projects to do, and at the end of the year, decide what to do, put them back to part-time or keep them on if your business has grown. So you're not obliged to keep them on permanent full-time after the end of this program. It's just that you're just signing a contract with them for the duration of the training program. So twice the labor for the same cost. If you've got casuals, you can make them part-time and you almost halve your wage bill. If you have to pay holiday pay and sick pay, but you that costs you, say, an extra, I don't know, 8%, and you get 50% back, so you're still ahead by 42%. If you're hiring one person, and this is something that we've done and some of our clients have done, hire a second person on a 12-month contract, depending on the salaries. If they're people on 100 grand a year, obviously it's different, but if anyone's paying, you're paying them at sort of 50 to 60,000 kind of range. Hire a second one in a 12-month contract, and it's going to cost you the same as if we just hired the one in the first place, and you can get some extra projects done with your extra body. And the other one that's probably relevant to you guys down south is if you are rehiring people that you've stood down after a 6-month break, then they count as new workers and you've got lots of course options for them. If they've been stood down for less than 6 months, have a chat with us about it, because there's some discretion in the way that the government applies the rules. So say you hired somebody back in July or something, and they worked for a few weeks, and then you went into lockdown and they didn't work for a couple of months. If they're full-time and the total that they've worked for you is less than 90 days, or they're part-time and the total that they've worked for you is less than 12 months because you've chopped out the bits where they were stood down, then, although it's not in the written policy, the government agencies that organise this stuff have got the discretion to go, yeah, okay, we'll still count that one as a new worker. The reason you want them to be a new worker is courses are cheaper and there are more course options. Is it making sense so far? Am I talking too fast? Hopefully everyone's still here. That's a good sign. So let me just explain the eligibility for the existing workers thing. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. So existing employees is a little bit fiddly. And by existing employees, it's like, permanent, full-time, more than 3 months, or long-term part-time that you don't want to upgrade to full-time. So I've extracted some bits out of the policy. An existing worker is only eligible to get back payment, that's 50% subsidy, where the existing worker is doing a trades-based Australian apprenticeship. So obviously if you've got someone, what's our solar people, if you've got someone who's been working for you as a labourer for a while and you go, actually I want to put them through a trade, then they would be still eligible to get this 50%. Or if they've gone from casual to part-time and full-time, they're eligible, part-time to full-time. However, what they call a trades-based Australian apprenticeship is actually a 13-page list of qualifications. And it's got all the regular trades on it, like plumbing and things like that, but it's got a whole bunch of other stuff like cybersecurity, workplace health and safety, what is on there, dog grooming, greenkeeping. There's a lot of courses. So basically it's the things that they've gone, these are courses that are practical type courses and we've got a skills shortage in these areas. So there are a bunch of courses that you wouldn't think are a traditional trade that might still be on that list. So what we normally do is you tell us who you've got working for you, what they're doing, and then we'll go through and go, oh yeah, they could potentially be eligible for this, and we'll kind of map them across to the lists. And I've explained what the definition of a trades-based Australian apprentice is here. It's a Certificate 3 or Certificate 4 level qualification that leads to one of these defined occupational outcomes. So it's got to be checked against that list. I'll give you a couple of examples, make it easier. So trade's obviously easy. Anything that's trade, pretty much you can get a wage subsidy for at the moment. Cybersecurity, I said, there's things like if you're a technician doing home sustainability assessments, I didn't even really know what that is, that's the thing. If you've got an office manager in New South Wales or WA, there's a certificate for in business and environmental sustainability, which is basically about making your business more sustainable. And that is a case-by-case one, but we've been getting a few of those approved for office managers in those 2 states. If you've got, now the safety one is really interesting and also one to be a bit careful of. There's every time, you've probably seen this movie, every time the government brings out a bucket of money, a whole bunch of people jump in and splash around in it and run off with it when they probably shouldn't. So there has already been a whole bunch of rorting in this program. And so the government is starting to kind of come back and critically look at applications, which they weren't doing before. At the beginning, they were just firing them all through and go, does this person really need to do this course? So if you were a nameless chicken franchise and you put every single one of your teenage workers that sells chicken to people onto a certificate for in WHS, then you're currently getting a visit by the state auditors to go, please prove to us that all these kids are actually safety officers. Anyway, these things happen. So if you have got someone though who genuinely has got safety responsibilities, so they might be a safety officer, they might be an HR manager, they might be a supervisor in a high risk kind of an industry, then and an existing worker, then you could put them on a certificate for on workplace health and safety. There are some rules around that, like there's got to be someone else with those skills that can supervise them, like anything, but we can have a look at that for you. And most businesses have probably got 1 or 2 people that would fit into that of your existing workers, depending on how big or small you are. And then there's a bunch of other things like, certificate for in civil construction supervision, if you're building roads or tunnels and things like that, or you're a subcontractor to anyone like that, then so those courses are they're available for existing workers. And there's 13 pages on that list, but those are the sorts of courses that are on there. Let me just show you, this is just an example of what comes back when you're approved, comes back through to the training provider, which says, so this one was certificate for in civil construction supervision, existing worker training, blah, blah, blah. Once that piece of paper arrives, then you know that it's approved and you're going to get the wage subsidy. So let me tell you step by step, very quickly, what you need to do, and then we're nearly finished. So before you claim, here are the steps that you need to follow. And we will send you out a copy, if you like, of this presentation afterwards, so that if you want to just work your way through this checklist, then you can do that. So look at the approved courses that suit your business and your location. So that is, look at what their jobs are, what courses would be suitable for them. Look at what the state government allows and what the federal government allows for the existing versus new workers. Think about anybody that you want to hire between now and March and what skills you want them to have. And there's an opportunity here potentially. So one of the courses, for example, in most of the states, you can do a certificate for in business, which includes some digital marketing units, for example. Lots of people that I know are really struggling to find anybody with those kind of digital marketing skills. I think when I last looked on Seek, there were like 45,000 of those jobs that were being advertised had the keywords digital marketing built into them somewhere. So you might hire somebody who's got a bunch of other office type skills or even some marketing skills and put them on a certificate for in business brackets digital marketing or a certificate for in marketing and communications. And so get the training provider to fill the gaps for you. So there's an opportunity at the moment. If you can't get the perfect person, we're kind of used to just buying employees off the shelf, aren't we? That's a terrible way of describing it. But we go, I want a person who can do this, 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 and this. And right now, we can't get that. So we have to go, okay, let's hire for attitude and some skills, and let's use this money to train and bridge the gap. So think about new staff. Think about what existing staff you'd like to upskill that are in positions that would be eligible for one of those existing worker courses. Check the qualifications, make sure you've got supervisors for them, check for any other state-based incentives. So for New South Wales, their main incentive is the free courses. Other states have got the extra 20,000 or 10,000 that they'll give you that is on top of the federal money. Choose a training provider that's got funding and that is also going to do a good job. Then you choose what they call an ASIN, which is the apprenticeship centres that actually come out and do the sign up. Organise the sign-ups with your employer, your training provider and your apprenticeship centre, lodge your wage claim, lodge your claim for the other incentives. Simple. I feel like that meerkat on the TV ad. So we can help with most of that if you want us to, or you can work your way through it. Now, the easy bit, once that's all done, the easy bit is actually claiming the wage subsidy. And I know because I've been claiming it. Basically, once you registered and approved, then every quarter, then you get sent a reminder by text and email from the ASIN who does it on behalf of the government. And it basically says, hop online, click this link, put this password in, upload the pay slips for your employee for the quarter, and you do that, and they've added a declaration where you've actually got to say, yes, they still work here and they are doing this course and we're not doing anything naughty. You click that and you hit submit, and basically the magical fairies take it away, and then within a couple of weeks, money turns up in your bank account. So that bit's pretty easy. Yeah, the process does work, money does turn up. Although having said that, I wouldn't 100% rely on it at the moment for cash flow, because the money that turned up in my account on Monday, which was, what was that? It was like the 28th or 29th of November, is the, so we've got July, August, September. So they pay quarterly. So that was the October payment. And I didn't get that till the very end of November, because they are, as you can imagine, swamped. They've had 217,000 signups. So just bear in mind when you do this, that at the moment, you could end up waiting a few weeks for reimbursement. You will get it, but just make sure that if you're going to do this, that if you're going to hire extra people to use this, make sure you've got the cash flow to fund them until the money comes through. Okay, a couple of questions that we get quite often. One guy said, oh, my employees are a bit stupid. Like, what if they fail the course? So if your employees don't pass, even though they tried, you still get funded and you don't have to reimburse it. However, you've got to genuinely put them on the course. They've got to genuinely engage. They've got to try. They've got to communicate with their training provider, that sort of thing. But it's not linked to whether they actually pass it or not. The money, you just upload the pay slips for the quarter, and whatever you paid them, you get half of it back, capped at 7,000. And the other question that we get a lot is this going to take a lot of time for the supervisor, because it's an on-the-job training thing? It's on-the-job training, but it's driven by the training provider, the registered training organisation. So they will send them a bunch of assessments, activities, and go do these in your workplace over the next month or whatever. And your supervisor needs to actually check that the person has done those and sign off on it and say that they've done it competently. So it shouldn't take up much time from your supervisor. Now, we're nearly at the end, so if you've got any other questions, just pop them in and just explain where to from here. So here's the thing. This bureaucracy, I presume, because you're a sane, is not your core business. Rachel has muted herself for this whole presentation because she's tearing her hair out dealing with some government departments, aren't you, Rachel? But you're busy. What I've found in everybody that pretty much I've talked to lately is flat out busy, either because their business is booming and they're trying to get more staff, or because their business is busting and struggling and they're just running around trying to keep it together. But either way, everyone's flat out busy. There doesn't seem to be anything in between at the moment, which is interesting. You are very welcome to do this yourself, and I hope that I've given you enough today that you can do it yourself if you want to. However, there is a big however. We keep running into people who have tried to do it themselves and their applications got rejected because they were coded wrong or because they've been given bad advice about how to lodge the claim. One of the things that's happened is, because there have been so many people take this up, is that the ASINs, who are funded by the federal government to process these. I was talking to one a couple of months ago and he said, oh, we're getting on top of things. We've got 100 new staff starting on Monday. And it's just like, oh boy. And we keep hearing over and over that they're doing their best, but when you've got 100 new staff all starting on the same day, the chances of them being able to give you accurate advice about how to do stuff are somewhat diminished. So we're constantly getting applications rejected because the ASIN's going, no, that person can't do this course. And then we have to go back and basically prove to them that they can. And we have, touch wood, got them overturned every time, but they get rejected and then we have to kind of get them overturned. So what I would suggest that you do is get us to do all the setup, like your accountant probably did for you for JobKeeper if you're eligible. We do the setup, and then once a quarter, you just upload your pay slips. You can carry on with your core business. when you get approved, or when the first grant money hits your account, you just forward 10% of the approved amount to us, and then you keep the rest and carry on doing what you do best, which is presumably not manage all this stuff. So just to clarify that, we just take 10% of what we can get for you. You don't pay us anything at all unless you get approved. And if cash flow is an issue for you, because I know it is for some people, and our objective for this is to get your money, not to take your money. So if cash flow is an issue, then talk to us about setting up some sort of payment plan where you don't have to pay us until you get money in, whatever. Like, absolutely understand that, been there. Like, don't stress about that if you have to ask us that. Let me just see, we've got a question. Oh, this is Rachel. We can have to speak. Thank you, Rachel. You can speak. So where to from here? I'll just give you a couple of quick things to do. So all you need to do is go, yeah, okay, let's go ahead and give this a go. There's a link which Rachel might drop into the chat if she's got it. If not, we'll email it to you later on today. And there's just a quick quiz for you to go through and say, yes, I'd like you to do this. We're not going to lodge anything on your behalf without talking to you first. But if you're worried about that, just put a note in the notes section of the quiz. I think Rachel might have just dropped it into the chat. Yeah, it's a job form that she's dropped into the chat if you want to grab a copy. Give us a go ahead. Tell us a little bit about your people. It's a fairly short quiz. We just kind of need to know, who you've got, what they do. We'll review it, and then if we think that you qualify, then we'll action it after we talk to you. Make sure that. So we'll basically let you know if we think there's an opportunity. If we look at it and it's a really simple one, like you've just got, a 17-year-old that you want to turn into a plumber, then we'll just say, oh, look, you can just do that yourself if you want to. If it's simple, we'll tell you. If it's more complex and we know that we're going to be able to get you more funding, more courses than what you could do for yourself, then we'll tell you that as well. Now, we are, as you've seen, working from home today. So if you want to contact us, probably the best way is to email Alessa on the email that's on there, or just grab that job form link out of the chat, and then we will go through it and we'll go, oh, Alessa, thank you, has popped her mobile into the chat too, 0451 733 418. So you're welcome to just give her a call if you've got questions as well. But I'd suggest, if you think it's something that you want us to investigate for you, fill out the job form. And then what will happen, just actually, by the way, because we have got quite a few of these to do, is Rachel goes through them as soon as she gets them to see if there's anybody that's on a deadline, like their 90 days is coming up if they're full-time, or the 12 months is coming up if they're part-time. So if you've got an urgent one, she will check it. Feel free to write it in the notes as well, but she will double check it to make sure there's nobody there that's about to expire, or not the person, the eligibility, hopefully. And if there's an urgent one, then she will put it at the top of the list and she will do it straight away. If you haven't got anybody that's about to expire in the next few days, then it might take her, it'll be less than a week, but it might take her. How long do you reckon, Rachel, it will take you to get back to people at the moment? Thoughts on that. But other than that, that's kind of it. I hope that's 2 days. Oh, say 3, Rachel. Under promise and over deliver. Rachel reckons it'll take her 2 days to get back to you. Okay, 4 then. All right, we'll say 4. So that's kind of it. I think it's actually a really cool opportunity. It's one of those ones where when we first started telling people about it, we kind of went through and looked at what industries could benefit, and we sent you guys emails. We basically put people into groups and sent out emails to go, hey, this is a cool thing, you should have it. And what's been really interesting, and I should have known better, is the number of people who have gone, oh, is this some sort of like, online internet scam where you're trying to get my bank account so you can run? It's like, it does seem too good to be true, doesn't it? But it is actually awesome. We're getting the money into our bank account. It is a real thing. It's not going to last. So it's like, make hay while the sun shines, and, claim this money. Businesses have been through enough in the last couple of years. If the government wants to give you some money to train your people, or the state governments want to give you some money to hire some people, then, take it. I will stick around for a minute or so just in case anyone's got any question, but if not, fill out the job form, and we will talk to you soon, hopefully. Thank you for coming. I hope there's something useful in that. I hope that there's some new information that you'll be able to benefit from. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.